So, Dr. Tammy, why call it the Naked Doctor?
Well, it's the naked truth about health, wellness, and lifestyle, but it's also fun not to wear clothes in the studio.
That is right.
Let me get this straight.
Hi, welcome back this week to The Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy.
And I'm Cryssie.
And we have a great guest this week, Ross Cook. He's an amazing person, and he does a technique called balancing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting story about him. And, you know, I think the topic of this week is probably going to be anxiety, depression.
Yeah,
There's been a lot coming out. You know, Robin Williams committed suicide, clearly had some depression issues going on. You know, Johnny Depp, Leanne Rimes, celebrities are coming out and really acknowledging their issues. Angelina Jolie, you know, admitted cutting on herself, you know. So, I mean, it's like people are really coming out.
Yes, and
saying
that's
that
great
this is a
because
real
there are
issue.
so many people that suffer and suffer quietly because there's a shame attached to it, they believe. And boy, the more we talk about it, the more we realize that sometimes that's a part of life and you can help lift someone else out. Man, the better things get for everybody. So I'm, as dark as this may seem to be coming into it, I am excited because this is shining some light somewhere where it needs a little light and love.
It is. I have a dear friend that I grew up with, and her mother, you know, suffers with bipolar and schizophrenia. And, you know, just recently she felt really comfortable coming out and talking about that and eliciting some support with that. And it's a hard path for anybody, especially if you don't suffer with it yourself. You probably know someone who is a dear loved one who suffers with it. And it's really, we've suffered in silence, and it's time to just kind of call it out and work on that path.
Yeah.
So the crazy story with Ross is literally one day I was just in a place, just a dark place myself. And, you know, nobody's immune to it. You know, people look at me and they're like, she's accomplished, she's a physician.
What do you have to be
she's
sad about?
She's had TV shows, she's written books, she's like, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like you should have it together. I'm one of the worst people of having it together. You know, I'm just going to like call it what it is. I'm a human being on the same trajectory with everyone else. And so I was just in this really dark place, and they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And so I just kind of get this call out of the blue. He's a kind of a colleague, friend, acquaintance of my husband's, and he says, I just feel like I need to come see you for some reason. And he had gotten a free plane ticket. I mean, this is the way the universe lines things up.
Perfect.
You know, you can't
if we try
plan
to do
this
it,
stuff.
exactly.
Kind of like you and I pulled in the parking lot this morning.
Exactly
It's
the same moment.
Same time. You can't plan this stuff. So anyway, he literally just shows up, and he teaches me about this process, which we're going to share with everyone today, and I'm going to let him talk more about that. Changed my life. Worked with a family member of mine, and, you know, he really claimed that it was very powerful for him as well. And it was kind of crazy because this family member of mine, it was interesting because we did this thing, this mind meld thing that he taught us where we put our heads together and like literally read each other's minds for a minute. And so it was like the most intense thing.
How fun.
So, I mean, this is all fun exploration.
Yes.
And, you know, we were talking this morning too about being raised with this kind of religious,
very
restricted. Don't even ask those questions.
Right.
Don't explore that stuff.
It's sinful to question. No.
And it's just not. That's all fear that keeps you in that box. That keeps you paying the money to the churches and stuff. And I know that people aren't going to probably want to hear this message.
Step on anyone's toes. However, these are things we need to consider.
But it's a dialogue.
It is a dialogue. Nothing threatening about a dialogue. Expand your consciousness a little bit. That's why we're here. Talk
like
about these things.
My medical disclaimer, don't fire your doctor. It's like, don't fire your priest. Don't stop going to church.
Don't do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable right in the moment, but it's okay to ask these questions. And when you become more comfortable with the subject, you can move into that, explore it on your own, in your own time. We're just here to help facilitate that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I just feel like, you know, it seems like since 2012, it was just this huge, for lack of a better term, midlife crisis for me, because I'm in, you know, almost 50, and so it's that timing is perfect.
Yep.
So, you know, and being that I'm kind of the hormone queen, of course, I'm thinking, you know, my hysterectomy probably had everything to do with it. But looking back over these past 3 years, I have just had so much growth, and do not profess in any way to be a master or enlightened or, you know, at the end of the path, but just on a journey like
on a
everyone
journey.
else is.
I say level up. That's
up.
what I say.
Yeah.
You look at it and you think, wow, I've had a realization that makes me see things a little bit differently. I have leveled up. And I think about that. And every time something clears or I realize something different about my body, about the way I see the world, I think, wow, now that's changed my perspective so much. It's like leveling up. And as we were talking about 2012, I had this thought just the other day. As people were saying, what is this Mayan calendar business? What does this mean? And it would be almost like if your entire couple of centuries, you had this giant desk calendar where you tear off the days, tear. And it's like, as a race, we kind of looked around and went, dude, there's like 3 of these left. There's like 3 flaps on this. What do we do? What are we supposed to do? And it dawned on me that the calendar.
Buy a new calendar?
Right. The calendar itself was not magic, okay? And the calendar itself represented a cycle, all right? But as a race of humans, we looked at that and went, what does that mean? And just the fact that as a entire race, we questioned something together, it seemed to sort of bring a new, because we started expecting something. Like the whole planet was like, what's going to happen next? We don't even know. This is crazy.
Kind of like year 2000.
Right. And so, yes, there were theories of apocalypse and there were theories of awakening and there were theories, but I thought, the important thing is that we all pondered together. There was a lot of energy in that. So it almost helped us give birth to something a little bit new simply because it was there. It's such an odd thing to think. The calendar itself may have not been that magic, may have not represented that much, but it took our focus together into one, what's going to happen next? What does this mean? And I think that helped blossom our consciousness a little bit to understand that there is more than just what we see.
And that's one of the things that Ross taught me when he came for that visit was he talks about the core principles that you kind of guide your life on. And one of the core principles that I decided that drives my life is wonderment. I wonder. And so you can go into any situation being fearful or negative. But if you just walk into it with wonder, and that's what I do with our show every week when I come here. Is I wonder what's going to happen
I know.
today.
How is this going to, and it always winds up being something really awesome. We have positive intent when we come into it. We admit that there are things that we don't know, that we're looking for the answers for, that sometimes those answers are flexible. Not every peg fits into every hole perfectly.
Oh, and I'm learning that the rigidity is what makes you really anxious.
Yes.
Because
Fear.
I'm learning that learning to be uncomfortable or comfortable with the uncomfortable is what I think the universe, God, is trying to drive me towards.
Right.
Because
that's where creation happens.
I was just talking to my brother this morning saying, it's just interesting how less rigid I am becoming. And some people, as they age, they become more rigid. The grumpy old people, that you don't want to interact with. And some people really go the other direction. And I hope to be one of those people that goes the other direction that says, I wonder what this could be, what this next step.
And I'm excited by it.
I'm excited.
Always am.
And that's where the anxiety, I think, starts to lessen because some of the anxiety in my life is all this rigid thinking. It has to be this way. When I get to work, it has to be this way. And so a lot of people, when they go through their day-to-day operations of going to a job maybe they're not happy in, are doing that, and they have this sense of lack of control. And if you just give up all control and say, I wonder how much anxiety
and
can
sometimes
that release?
Right before you have a breakthrough, that box gets really tight.
It gets really
It gets
tight.
really
Like the birth
crowded and
canal.
uncomfortable in there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then when you burst out of it, the feeling is fantastic. Even when it's in small increments, such a good feeling. And then you find yourself reaching for that feeling again. And you level up.
You level up.
Yes.
I love it. And that's what Ross does is he really helps you level up.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a little commercial break here for just a minute. And when we come back, we're going to be talking to Ross.
This is going to be great.
With balancing. I'm so excited. Can't hardly just sit in my seat. All right, y'all hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back this week to The Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy.
And I'm Cryssie.
And we are here with Ross Cook. He is an expert in something that he's developed called balancing. Hello, Ross. Thank you for being with us this week.
Well, hello, y'all. Thank you for having me.
we're talking a little bit about stress. We had a little bit of stress getting going with our
We did.
equipment
You know
here,
what? We
so-
talked about anxiety and stress,
Yeah,
and
and
then
we
we
brought
had
it
some
on.
technical difficulties.
Yeah, we did. But it all worked. So, and I
It did.
remember thinking, because we were like, this isn't going to work. And then it worked. And then
Yeah.
it's like,
We
oh,
gotta
we got to be
think
careful.
positively,
So we gotta
yeah.
think positive. So how are you, Ross Cook? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, it's exquisite here today. It's beginning to be fall, so we're going to be in the 90s, but it's in the 60s out there. It was in the 50s last night. And so just wonderful. And I'm really honored to be with you. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you to have me. We have some work we've been doing for 23 years that is at the center of balance and effective communication. And what we've been blessed enough to be able to find out is how to teach people to go within themselves and make profound, truly profound change by working at a deep subconscious level and at a level consciously that we can talk about, like value and belief level that changes all the causality of your life. And we've just been very, very fortunate. I've been happy to know Dr. Tammy for a while now, and she's gone through some sessions and is currently a client, and I believe she's had some
changed my
profound
life.
change work.
Changed my life. And I was just saying in the introduction, I know you can hear before that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear, and you just literally popped out of nowhere and said, I got a free plane ticket, and I just felt like I needed to come, and it was just perfect timing. And just the 2 sessions that we've done so far have been just life-changing. And
You're very kind, and you're very brave to do the work. Way to go.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's not
Yes.
easy work. I will say that. I mean, it's kind of, what would you say, gut-wrenching at times, but it's stuff that needs to come to the surface.
Well, I think it's a simple thing about there's enough possibility in this world. There's enough energy to make any change you want. But we've been encoded. We've been encoding at trillions and trillions of electrical events a second, and it's all been recorded. So it's all there available for us. You know, we can go do that. We can go get it. But we have programs that made us a good 2-year-old, a good 10-year-old, a good 15-year-old. But we wouldn't let that 2, 10, or 15-year-old drive our car right now. Right. So why would we let them handle our relationships or our businesses or whatever? So we have to go back, and it's all available to us, and we have to go back and re-script those programs at a causal level and kind of keep them coming forward into what we like to think is a life of choice, but as often as not is a life of symptomology out now. And so we need to go back and re-script them. And sometimes those programs are tough. They don't want to give up, but they will. We can relearn anything.
I love that what you say, you go into sort of those memories or into that space and you pull energy out of that, because it is that negative energy. Sometimes we focus on, we don't want the negative energy, we don't want the bad thoughts, but sometimes it is that negative energy that we pull energy out of to get us, to propel us to the next stage. So it's
like a recalibration.
Yeah.
We're going to use that over here.
Very well
in a
put,
good way.
recalibration. I love that. Nice word.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's important. And a lot of the stuff, we don't have to have horror in our past. I mean,
trauma.
But we did have limit. We did have child logic. We did have our archetypes show up, and then we then start layering on. I think Ernest Holmes said it very well. He said, we come in perfect, and then we begin to make inventions of who we think we are. Those are roles and jobs and people's opinions of us. And we begin to just layer invention upon invention on ourselves. And then we start believing the inventions. And so getting well is an unfoldment. It's a re-scripting, but it's a pulling away of things as much as it's adding 5 more new bitchin' cool fun things to do. No, it's a deep, profound wholeness that is unfolded into wellness.
And how did you get into really this whole process, Ross? What was so intriguing? Was it personal development for you? Was it just a natural journey?
I think it's always been. Thank you. Good question. I think it's I got into making change 2 ways, really. I had always wondered why when someone tried to do something once, they couldn't do it the next time. And I had always been very curious about that, even as a child. So I taught elementary school, and then I thought teachers must know, and then I thought university people must know, and college coaches must know, and business people must know, and the seminarians must know, and the ministers must know. And I dabbled and worked hard and had a great career in a lot of those areas I just mentioned. And then I got very ill, and I had to just quest outside and find something different than the traditional I am separate from the world mentality in order to change my life. And that's how I came to learning about balancing. And just as our technical problems healed themselves, I had brilliant, magical teachers show up and teach me, and pretty soon they were coming to me. And I thought it was just because we were friends. I had no idea that I was actually supposed to be doing this work.
Wow.
Just really
That
moving.
was
And
23
I
years
think
ago.
that's a fantastic journey, and I think it's a journey that a lot of us have experienced. I mean, everyone experiences it in a different way, but you look towards these sources that are supposed to be the source of knowledge, and when you don't find your answer, you go to the next, and when you don't find your answer, you go to the next, and at some point you hit the end and go, well, there's only that which is outside of, I don't know, it's...
And sometimes at some point you say, I just don't know. But
Yeah,
I think
you hit the
there's
point where you're
always,
like, I don't know.
There's always people on the path to help you to that next step, to say, I don't know everything, but I know this next step.
Mm-hmm.
And that always feels
Yeah, I think it's.
very
I
good.
think there's a few pieces that you just kind of rolled the rocks back on right there. I think one, it's important really not to be a metaphysical voyeur even while you're out there trying to make your changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be how many different things I've tried. It's going to be how deep have I taken the things I'm learning into myself. Because at some point, and particularly with the aging of America and the Jungian rises people are going through now, just trying harder, the things that we hear and are been preached to us, they just stop working. And it just made many things in your life that have been incredible to help you become who you are, eventually just stop.
Yeah.
They just don't work anymore. And so where are you going to go? And that becomes a journey within yourself. You have to truly learn to journey within yourself. I hope you don't know too many people who have married or dated the same person again and again and again, or they get sick every fall or whatever. That's an internal dialogue.
Yeah.
That's all that is. That's an internal
Just running the same
representation of their
program
life.
over and over
And
and
that
over
can
again.
totally be rescripted. That can totally be rescripted within yourself, and all the encodes and all the energy available. But you're not going to get that like skipping from discipline to discipline to discipline. You have to journey deep
Within.
into the encodes that are making the programs.
Yeah. I think we so want to look at, causal effects outside of us, and we want to say, well, if this would change or this circumstance would
Yes.
change, I would feel better. And we just really, it's
That's
that man in the
conditional.
mirror and all that stuff. You be the change that you want to see in the world. And that's just so hard because you really want to focus outside yourself.
It's a serious challenge because the change you want is not just more of the same. If you look at your life and you had 30% more kindness or honor or clarity or wonder or peace, and all those were pumping another 40%, your life would be different than you know today.
Yeah.
So wellness comes without handrails. It's not like
I love that.
a little convenient thing. And wellness shows up differently, and you don't have handrails in the world of unfamiliarity.
Oh, and don't you think that wellness has to come almost always on the back of sickness, the contrast of that? Because like you said, you went through a significant illness. I have had just some incredible breakthroughs just this week that was on the back of a complete life turn up, being literally fired from my ego and my identity, and so you have to have the hard drive kind of crash sometimes to,
I think when we're first learning, and I mean this completely with love, Dr. Tammy, I think when we're first learning our stuff, we do kind of realize the energy is more available that day than other days. But I would offer to you, it's always available.
Yeah.
It's always there.
That's a hard thing to trust because you think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you have these like moments of awakening and you're
Yes.
like, this is the next step. And then you realize, and then
Calling
life
it
starts
leveling
happening
up.
again.
Well,
I
Ross,
like-
I'm going to tell you this. I used to honestly, and I was in the same place. I had a lot of autoimmune issues, and I was really searching for an alternative pain treatment when I started my meditation practice. And then something occurred to me after all of this research I'd done and all of this searching. And I was expecting a single moment of enlightened epiphany, as if this bright light would shine down on me, and from that moment forward, I would be an enlightened being. That's kind of what I was thinking, like it was just instantly going to be. And then I thought, you know what? If something came to me right now and told me the secrets of all the universe, I would still have to get up tomorrow and put on pants and go pay bills and live my life. And it's like what I was really looking for was an escape from that.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily that I wanted the answers to the whole universe. I just knew everything needed to be different from the way it was right now. And now I've learned that that's a process. It's not just one moment of change. What do you think?
We
Am I
into
off?
the Disney happily ever after world, and it's almost a cultural DNA. If you help enough people out there, the old Puritan background in America, you just get out there and help other people. You just be self-effacing, and it doesn't matter if you crash, you'll be rewarded later. Wait a second. You need to rethink some of those thoughts. You are responsible for what's going on. And a breath you took 15 days ago is really important. And the breath you take right now is vitally important.
Mm-hmm.
They are a process. We are here, and we have to constantly intend and value the causality of our life. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, our history is only too willing to run you on railroad tracks and say, I know what happens, when the temperature starts to change. I know what happens when you've been in a relationship for 2.5 years. And those are the things that we get a great opportunity to intend every moment.
I think we constantly struggle with feeling incomplete too, and so we're looking for completion.
Yeah, where's that extra piece that I can't find? Because everything will be better when I find that piece.
Completion just doesn't happen because
No.
as soon as you complete this, then there's something else to
more.
complete. Mm-hmm. And I love what, Cryssie, you're leading into with the meditation practice, because we've talked about this with the breathing. One of the things I've noticed with you, Ross, with the process that we've done together is the first time I would find myself getting so stressed going into those old memories, looking to bring that energy forward, that I would stop breathing. And you kept saying, breathe. It'd be nice if you breathe now. Okay, you could breathe now. And I'd be like, I'm breathing. And the second time that we went through the process, this is going to sound a little hokey for people out there.
Don't worry about that.
But I really felt like I left my body. I really felt like one of those out-of-body experiences. And it was really because I think I was... the first time was very impactful, but the second time was more impactful because I was really relaxing into the breathing process. And Cryssie, you mentioned when you were doing that kind of yoga breathing, that's really what kind of took you to that next step. Mm-hmm. And we take for granted breathing, but can you elaborate more on that, Ross? Because I know that's a huge part of what you do. We get stressed, we stop breathing.
Yeah, right from the middle of the little slap on your bottom the first time, what do babies do? They go, cry down, fall down, they go, and they're locking everything that happens around them in that moment at a subconscious level. They're locking all the stress events, and they're locking it with their breath. So when we ask you to think of something difficult, your subconscious mind says, yeah, I remember, I was breathing like this. As a matter of fact, I don't do it as much anymore, but when we used to teach gigantic auditoriums of people at once, I would actually ask them to panic breathe for a minute, and man, people would start to freak out because
I bet the energy of the room would just change.
Would show up. They would show back up like, and everybody would get afraid. And I'd say, hold it. Now let's go back and breathe in a 4-part method, and let's really breathe smoothly. And it becomes harder, actually, to pull up stresses while you're breathing that way. But we work hard at bringing those stresses forward, because one thing we do differently than most is we go to those stresses and we disconnect the energies, and then your subconscious mind is then saying, well, wait a second, I have all this extra available energy now to put to clarity or kindness or unconditional love. And then we bring that energy forward and we power up these programs with all this energy that was otherwise just running on automatic and running limits and stresses. Breath is part of that. Imagine the little cells in your being, the gaps in your cells. If they're in a scarcity, breathing like startle logic as opposed to a flow, this is a safe environment. Look how calmly I breathe because check my breath. I'm safe. I'm good. I can change these things. Even in the middle of that horror, that energy comes forward and you can invest it deeply into wellness.
Wow, completely different. Hey, Ross, the producer's saying it's time for a little break here. We're going to take a little commercial break. When we come back, do you think you could maybe even just walk our listeners through maybe a little breathing exercise?
Oh, gosh,
would that be cool?
awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That sound good?
Yeah, we could do something like that.
All right, cool. Okay, cool. We're going to take a little break and we'll be right back with The Naked Doctor.
I don't think I'm well. I don't love
Hi, welcome back to The Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy.
And I'm Cryssie.
And we're here on phone with Ross Cook with his balancing technique that's absolutely amazing. Been talking about that a little bit. And we were just talking about the past and old programs that run. And I thought that was a great little analogy you had, Cryssie, about sometimes you have programs open on your phone or your computer.
And you don't even realize are running.
Why isn't this working?
Why aren't I?
And you have to go close those out. So
Yeah,
I love that.
You used to close those apps you aren't using. That's really...
And I know, Ross, that the balancing techniques that you have come from years and years of your own developing this technique, and it's absolutely healing in nature and very spiritual and amazing. And to explain all that is really hard with our viewers. And I hope that everyone out there listening would have some opportunity to work with you or one of your trained coaches. But I thought it would be fun if you could kind of talk a little bit about breathing and maybe take us through a breathing exercise that people could even start implementing in their life this week when they get a little stressed, because that's kind of the nature of what we're talking about this week.
How to implement things into your everyday life to make it better.
And I know that you can train people to balance on their own, because you've trained me to do that. And I do my balancing morning and night, just like brushing my teeth. It's just emotional maintenance. But just breathing alone, what would you recommend to people to kind of
I think
themselves?
it's vitally important to understand a couple things about breathing. And when we were in Hawaii, just recently working with some of the Haumana kahunas there on the Big Island, and some people from the ARE, and Mary Roach, the leading intuit at the ARE, she was over there, and we were working at breathing. We had a young woman named Megan Cook teach breathing and breath control, and she's a free diver, a rescue diver and a free diver. And she was teaching, and we had people work through and start out at about a minute. It ended up at holding the breath for 2.5 minutes.
Breathing for divers is essential.
3 and 4 days later. I think what's really important, I think there's a few things. Let me give you a couple things that if you're under stress that might help you, and then we'll take you through a little breathing thing. Okay. I think you have to understand that all moments are not created equally in your day. As you turn to go home, there are some target-rich environment programs in your life that are going to be more historic. And I come home from my work into my home. Am I present in my home, or is my history running my home? Because if my history is running my life and my day and my connections as I integrate back into home, I'm going to use historic breathing patterns. Okay, that's very important. The second thing is to realize that energy is neutral, but energy is everywhere. And if I'm talking to you, am I being reactive, or am I being responsible to my core values? And if I'm being responsible to my core values, I will have worked those core values so that they will be worked in a deep breathing, long pause methodology. And as often as not in our life, we're very reactive. We mentioned during the break that we give CPR to programs that we really don't even want around anymore, but we're familiar with them because, the familiar is the enemy of the authentic. And so that is one of the things.
I love that. The familiar is the enemy of the authentic. That should be a T-shirt.
And we have to realize that the perspective, of right now in this given moment, okay, and this is how I might say, well, what am I going to change in this moment? I'm going to change how I'm breathing. If I look at a moment as if I'm standing on a bridge and my internal life and my external life is crossing under the bridge as a river, I want to say, if I had 500% more of what I'm thinking about right now or feeling right now, would my dreams come true, and would this be wellness for me? And as often as not, it's not. As often as not, it's a struggle. Richard Moon said you can't get there from not here.
Not here.
So I'm sitting there, and
this
isn't going to get it at 500% more of what I'm doing now, I'm going to make a change. And the easiest way to change state in your life is to change your breath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to diaphragmatically breathe, which also, as Dr. Tammy can tell you, fires your lymph system. Body starts cleansing itself. And so what you're going to diaphragmatically breathe, and you're going to full intake, and I mean on a breath to the point where your shoulders rock back. And then when you're completely full, you're going to sip breath. You're going to sip breath. It's something they teach in freediving, is I'm going to fill up, and I think I don't have any more room for air. And then I'm going to breathe 5 or 6 times, and then I'm going to be still. And my brain's going to say, you would normally be breathing out right now. And you go, okay, that's good. And I'm going to relax, and then say, relax and exhale. I'm going to exhale diaphragmatically, and my tummy's actually going to pull in underneath my rib cage, and I'm going to then be empty, and then I'm going to wait. And then I think I'd normally be breathing in by now. Okay, I think I'll breathe in now. And you breathe in smoothly. And you get a rhythmic, long, slow breath connection that has pauses in it that you're going to eventually find the pauses are every bit as important as the inhalation and the exhalation. And you're going to spend time, because really you're teaching your being that you can trust this world. You can trust that there's air about to be there for you.
Wow.
You can trust that you can
That's
be
intense.
still. And it's not just a habitual panic breath that is, because if that's in your life, it's pulling programs from the past that are scary. And what you need to do is
Safety.
teach your being in a given moment. Look, how about you and I breathe differently right now? And let's do it for 7 breaths to start with. And if I do it once, and if I can get one, then see if I can get another one. That's very participative. And you're going to see that as you get to breath 3, 4, 5, the pauses get longer. You become more oxygenated. It's easier to be still. And when you're done with 7 4-part breaths, you're going to be remarkably peaceful and remarkably still. At rosscookbalancing.com, we have talks I give at churches, and they're recorded, and so you can hear me talk them, and you can also read them. And so through Brian Post and Dr. Tammy, they said you have to just give some of your stuff away. And so we've been giving away these talks for years, and now they're out on the internet so people can see them. And at the end of about a 20-minute visit about compassion or faith or how do you get that value into the actionability of your life, we take you through a 4 or 5 minute breathing exercise that will teach you to shift. So you just bring up a fear and boom, we'll change it. We'll teach you how to change it in you. And so that's out there at rosscookbalancing.com.
Wow.
You're more than welcome to go out there
Great
and
stuff.
Even just in the
make as many
discussion,
changes as you want.
just now, even in just the discussion and following that couple of breaths, like there's an energetic shift that you can feel
There is.
in
It
your
absolutely
core
changes you.
and then
There's
in
no-
your
there's
arms
no
and
doubt in
legs.
your
Like I
mind.
can
When you're
feel.
being, it's safety, it's
Safety.
safety, it's wholeness, it's connection, it's cooperation with the world. It changes your state, and that's what it's about. Most of our problems are symptomatic, and we have learned to change state using alcohol, anger, fear.
What about a
holding on to the
skeptic?
past.
What about a skeptic, Ross, who says, "Well, you're just distracting yourself"?
Yeah, you're just
You
turning
know,
the
it's an
noise
interesting
down for a
thing.
while.
Everybody has a subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has one, and it talks to them at night in dreams, and we go, oh, well, yeah, that's not really happening. No, we have a cooperative subconscious mind that's there for all of us, and these techniques will work for everyone else. An oxygenated body is healthier than a body that's not as oxygenated.
And that's so easy. We were just talking about free things out there. We did another show with a fitness coach who just said, start drinking more water. I mean, all these little changes that you
Yeah.
can just start telling your body some different messaging. You're safe. We're going to do this a little different way. Get rid of that rigidity, some of that very boxed in thinking.
Yes, and breathing is free
Breathing is free.
right now.
Yeah, breathing is free. One of the nice things I want you to do, and I'm going to sound like I'm going to throw kind of a wet towel in the middle of the floor here right now, is your conscious mind's not your buddy when it comes to changing. It really
No.
isn't. Its job is to keep you the same.
Oh.
And so you have to find a tool that it's going to take energy to make changes. It's going to take energy to make a cellular change or anything else that happens in your life. It takes energy to get through your day. So you're going to need energy to get the changes made. Well, what we do is we go to the stress and the anxiety, and we take those behavioral patterns and the energy that's operating those things kind of on automatic. We take the energy from that and bring it forward and power up joy, peace,
That makes so much sense.
congruence, because you're going to need the energy to change. And that is not just happy thinking. Happy thinking eventually falls down when a lower, more powerful subconscious value kicks in and takes control of what you're going to do or not do.
And one of the things you talked about, those values, one of those things you helped me do was establish those values. And so is that something that the listeners out there can start doing, is start thinking those values? Like for me, it was wonder. I love that, taking curiosity and a sense of adventure into things, unconditional love for myself, those kinds of things. So just really identifying what your important core values are a good start, would you say?
We teach entire courses on just how do you find your values, and a lot of times we don't know what our core value is, but we know what they're not. And so we're going to start somewhere. And
I know what I
okay.
don't
I know what I
like.
don't like.
Yeah, and so what we're going to do is let's talk about unconditional love for a second. Let's say unconditional love is a value, and you say that's what it is. But we've all been hurt. We've all you're going to show my generation now. We've all seen Old Yeller. We've all seen sad movies. We've all seen this and that. So when we pump up the value of love, we turn on both the greatness of the infinity and wonder of love. We also turn on the pain of our past, where loved ones have died and this and that. And that's where our behavioral patterns come from. And that's why people get so frustrated when they go into change and they attempt to do it consciously, is because they put the foot on the gas and then the limits in their value put the foot on the brake simultaneously. What we do differently is we go in and we take the energy from those limits and the pain. And Dr. Tammy, you can speak to the fact that things feel differently. You connect to things differently after a balance. And so we've actually realigned how you experience that thing in your past, so it's causally different in your subconscious mind now, and we bring that forward and we energize it differently. It's vitally important that we have energy and we re-script those things.
When you put it like that, it demystifies it so much, because I've just thought, wow, he's just a shaman, he's just a healer. I just have these conversations with him, and I kind of go to these out-of-body experiences,
Yes.
and I feel better.
It's like
solidifying.
solidifying and simplifying and being able to see it. Like as you speak, as you talk about these things, Ross, I get images in my head of how that energy moves and how you're taking something that was almost an anchor as you're trying to walk forward and you're dragging all of these heavy things, that you're able to lift well, let's take this one and let's lift that. Now see how much easier it is for you to move forward when you're not carrying that big heavy rock. I mean, that completely makes sense. And I love the way that you describe it, because you can feel a shift as you discuss it.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. And it says you're ready. You know, Dr. Tammy and Brian have helped me, and we're soon be coming out with some books and I've pumped out 30 illustrations here recently that are concepts of seminars I give. And one of them that you're talking about, pictures, is I'm dragging logs that are behind me, and I'm pulling them, and there's multiple logs behind me, and then now envision you're going to walk up the Parthenon steps, and there's columns that are not horizontal, but they're vertical now. And how am I going to drag these logs of my normal life through those things to the
Exactly.
place I
That's
want
not
to
going to
be?
work.
It's going to be very difficult. I'm going to have to let go of them. You know, I'm going to have to make changes in how I am connected to them, or I can't go forward into what people might call your hero's journey or your grail or the wonder of yourself or whatever.
And you know, Ross, when you popped into my life, just out of the ether, I think I was at that point that I realized that I had hit the wall, that what I was doing was not working. I was on this massive, Cryssie and I were talking about this since like 2012, like my midlife crisis, my awakening process, just on the spiritual journey, just trying to understand. And, you know, I'd come to these new truths and I'd be like, and then the next thing someone would like grab a grocery cart away from me and I'd want to hit them, you know, and I'd be like,
It feels like it undoes everything.
It undoes everything.
I just had this great learning, and this world still sucks.
And it still sucks. So when you showed up and you really started me on this process, it showed me that you don't have to do it alone, and you can't do it alone, that sometimes those old programs are just running, and to get in touch with that process. I mean, you can keep living your life the way you're living it, and you can keep staying in the misery you're doing.
It's like being stuck in a house of mirrors, like you're seeing the same stuff all the time, and it takes someone reaching in and going, okay,
And
look, that's just a reflection.
It's exhausting.
Come this way.
And until and I think that's kind of what midlife crisis is you kind of just like, I've been dealing with this for 40, 50 years. I'm tired. I'm just tired, and I need something different, and I need a different path.
Yep.
One of the great gifts of a midlife crisis is that as a woman, you get a rise of your maleness. So where you've been able to, and now women are cross-dominant, we know that, so but where they've been able to spin 30, 50 plates, they can spin 3,000 plates. That's why you see so many women open businesses at that time. And yet they have to keep it in balance. You have to keep both psyches in balance with each other. You know, when it goes wrong, you then lose your logic, and then you end up in my office in 4-year loops of you being ill, and then these big illnesses come on, and we're like, whoa, that's too bad. Well, no, it's just that what we term a midlife crisis is things just stop working, but it's a mind, body, and spiritual patterning that's changing. And we're built brilliantly. Our psyches attempt to come to balance. Our male and female psyche attempt to come balance. A male psyche, if I'm a guy and I'm out there running around, all of a sudden I get a rise in my feminine nature, and where I've been rewarded for raising my hand fast, getting the answer right, be quick, that's what success is. All of a sudden now I want to think about it for a day or two. And then I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it. Well, the first time in my life, I've never felt much about it at all because I've been rewarded for not feeling, and I've been rewarded for just not approaching wholeness. It is about wholeness and oneness that is that mind-body spiritual connection that needs to be kind of re-scripted, cooperated with, taught to be different, and given it permission to be different.
Yeah, the permission is a big part of that.
Well, this has been great stuff, and I would just love for everyone out there listening to be able to go through a balancing session, but I know that's probably not realistic. How can they reach out to you? I know, Ross, you have, and I know you won't toot your own horn, so I'll toot it for you. I know you've cured illness and pain, and, I know we're not saying that, we're curing anything.
Do your disclaimer thing. Don't flush your medicine down the toilet.
But
whatever.
You have amazing healing opportunity, and for those people who, you have a lot of free stuff on your website, rosscookbalancing.com. They can go and access that. But if they want to work with you as a coach, are you taking new clients? I know you're very busy.
I am, and I'll probably will maybe for a year yet. Okay. I think we have been big seminar teachers around the country, and
evangelizing.
Not only this country, but we've been around. We've been go to destination, gorgeous things, and then change everybody's vibrational DNA. It's a really significant change work. I think what's going to happen is I still am taking private clients. We have Skype clients all over the world, literally, and I have a private core of wonderful people, helper people that are here in their midst and making profound changes in their life here in Boise, Idaho. And so, I do that. People come to work with me, but they make long commitments. They make 20-week commitments, 1-year commitments, and they go to work and they re-script their world. We have, all the disclaimers are important that you guys were just talking about, but we have had people be symptom-free of some very significant work. They go through chemotherapy and actually not had any pain or throw up, or after they had lost 40 pounds, couldn't keep any food down. So it's not just happy thoughts. This is about learning to re-script your life. And let me offer this. Everybody can make significant changes in their life because we all have a subconscious mind.
That's awesome.
Some of this change work isn't for everybody. Some of this change work is specific to people who are at that point where they're like, they can do it at any time of their life. But sometimes it's a little more available because you're being whispered to that if you just continue the way you're going, it's not going to go so well.
It's that time.
So, we do have clients and we do that. You can see me at Ross Cook Facebook, Ross Cook Balancing on Facebook. We have some videos out there that you can see, and we're talking about file cabinets and how you encode in the past. And if you want to communicate with me, get to rosscookbalancing.com, and we'll get back to you. And there's some books coming, some video series is coming, and so
awesome.
Keep us nearing it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us this week, Ross. This is great information. Y'all reach out to him, nakeddoctorshow.com, and our Naked Doctor Facebook page as well, and we'll have some links to Ross as well if you want to connect with him, and at least go out there and just see what he's doing and start breathing, right?
Start breathing.
Happy breathing this week.
I'm honored to be with you, Cryssie and Dr. Tammy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next week here on The Naked Doctor.
She called the doctor, woke him up and said, "Doctor, ain't there nothing I can take?" I said, "Doctor,